Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the New York Historical Society. I am Louise Mirror. I have the great pleasure of being the person who gets to be called president of the New York Historical Society, and it is really terrific to see all of you in our beautiful Robert H. Smith Auditorium this evening. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge our board chair, Pam Schaffler, who's here with us this evening, and to thank Pam for all she does on behalf of this splendid institution. Thank you. It is also my great pleasure to recognize and acknowledge the amazing work on behalf of both our institution and our exhibition on view, Chinese American Exclusion, Inclusion, of our trustee, Agnes Hsu-Tang, who's here with us this evening and, of course, responsible for so much of what we are about to enjoy this evening. Thank you, Agnes. And I would also like to thank Mr. Oscar Tang, who has done so much, including sharing his story with us, some of which is told in our exhibition. Thank you so much, Oscar Tang. Thank you. And I know there are many other wonderful, great friends. I see Shirley Young here among us this evening, and even my brother, Brooks Mirror, and my sister-in-law, Christine Mirror, are here with us this evening. So welcome to all of you. We are really thrilled to begin this evening. I hope that you did all have an opportunity to visit the exhibition. It is a marvelous story of the history of Chinese in America, beginning with the first ship that set sail for Canton shortly after we became the United States, and ending with the great achievements of Chinese American New Yorkers today. I do hope that you'll be back, both to enjoy the exhibition in greater detail, and also to join us for an evening with Nancy Kwan, the legendary star of Flower Drums Song, which will take place on October 15th, Wednesday evening. Please do join us. And now, on behalf of the staff and trustees of the New York Historical Society, I am delighted to present the U.S. premiere of an episode from Discovery Channel Asia's series, Chineseness. Thank you. Well, thank you. That was great. Really great. And now it is my pleasure to introduce in greater detail Dr. Agnes Hsu-Tang. Dr. Hsu-Tang is an archaeologist and a cultural policy advisor. Since 2006, she served on UNESCO scientific committees. She's led an exhibition to Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan and authored a white paper on the multinational nominations of the Incan Road and the Continental Silk Road, which became World Heritage Sites in June 2014. She also advised the United States Cultural Property Advisory Committee on the renewal of the 2009 Bilateral Memorandum of Understanding with the People's Republic of China to reduce illicit trafficking of cultural objects. Dr. Hsu-Tang was a Mellon Fellow at the Needham Research Institute at Cambridge University, and she received her PhD from the University of Pennsylvania. Subsequently, she was on the faculty at Brown. She was also a Presidential Fund Humanities Scholar at Stanford and has published on ancient cartography and comparative archaeology. Since 2008, she's worked on several international documentary programs on China. She's, as we've seen, bilingual host and narrator of a number of documentaries, including the 2014 award-winning documentary, The Lost City of Jinsha, that will show on PBS later this year, and a series on contemporary Chinese art and society, Chineseness, which is on Discovery Channel Asia, and that actually premiered during the 2014 Art Basel Hong Kong at the Asia Society Hong Kong Center. She's currently completing the Mysteries of China series on Chinese archaeology. Her previous credits include The Giant Buddha at Lishan, 2009, and Xi'an, China's Forgotten City, on Discovery. It is my great pleasure to invite her and welcome her to the stage, Dr. Agnes Hsu-Tang.
Let me briefly introduce Mr. Yang Chihung. I want to begin today, actually give you a very brief introduction, biographical data, because when we set out to film this documentary series, we specifically did not want to film these episodes as biographies. Yang Chihung was born in Taiwan. I won't reveal the year. I don't think he wants me to, but you can find out online on your own. But Yang Chihung was born in Taiwan and educated in Taiwan in fine arts. He came to the United States in 1979. He first moved to Queens, and we saw a little bit of that in the documentary series. And he moved to Soho about 4 or 5 years later. After that, he was the first artist of Chinese descent, of Asian descent, to win not just one, but 2 consecutive Clocktower fellowships. And this was in 1983 to 1984 and 1984 to 1985. Or I'm off by 84 to 85 and 85 to 86. Yeah. And in context of this terrific exhibition, under the visionary leadership of Dr. Louis Mirror here at New York Historical Society, which is on Chinese American, I want to say that Yang Chihung just told me he received his citizenship in 1989, 10 years after he came to the United States. His work has been collected, exhibited worldwide, and has been critically reviewed. And tonight, we're just so delighted to have you here with us. And both of us want to thank the New York Historical Society for hosting us, but also thank you all for this wonderful audience for supporting this terrific organization and this groundbreaking exhibition. And we hope that all of you have had, if not an opportunity to see this exhibition. The theme of the episode on Yang Chihung, unbeknownst to him, but to us, the crew, was journey. So tell us the beginning of your journey as a Chinese American. What was it like? Most of us are not artists, and we have this fantasy. We all have this fantasy being a rock star or an artist. And when I first met Yang Laoshi, I had this picture in my mind, the only picture I had seen of him with a ponytail, with no shirt on, and he was just so cool. So tell us, what was it like to be here when you first arrived in New York and to be an artist?
Well, first of all, I have to say I still feel a little bit shy to look at the film.
Me too.
Because people not usually look at themselves so intensively within 45 minutes, right? You never look at yourself so long. So I feel a little bit shy or embarrassing. Okay, speaking of when I came to New York, it was 30-something years ago. So I spent 30-some years in New York City. And this is the most critical time in my whole life. I mean, this period of time, from 30 years old to 60-some years old. So just half and half. In Taiwan, I lived 31 years, and here 35 maybe. So you know how old I am.
He's giving it away himself.
Okay. And the reason I came to the United States is for the art. because since 50s, the capital of the art world is moved from Paris to New York. And I was thinking to go to Paris, when I was very young, because I look at the Van Gogh's biography. It's so interesting me, and I like Paris. But French is very difficult to learn. And in Taiwan, in high school, we learn English, and in the college also learn English. So it's a little bit easier. And then I got a chance in 1976 to visit United States the first time. I stayed 3 months in New York City. I think, wow, this is the place I want to be. So when I went back to Taiwan, I tried to get enough money to come back to New York. So in 1979, I was decided to live here and work here. So 30-some years, my critical period of time spent in this city only. I never been to, of course I travel. I mean, I only live in New York. So, because to me, I didn't go to the school like the younger generation. When they come to New York, they went to Pratt or School of Visual Art or some school, but I didn't. I graduated in the art school in Taiwan, which the same school An Lee did. You know, the film director, An Lee. And that's all. And I came here. I didn't go to the school. To me, New York City is a big school. It's a big university. We have, there are 600 galleries in New York, and 30-some great museums in New York City, and 60,000 artists live here. So, what else?
So what was it like to live here and breathe as an artist, live as an artist in
Chinese, we say 如鱼得水. It's how do you...
Fish in water.
Yeah. So, and I was trying to live in Soho. At that time, in the early 80s, Soho is getting more, it's like a booming time, you know. But I have children. My son is only 7 years old. He got to go to school, right? But in Soho, no school. Yeah. So the only way is send him to Chinatown. But I don't like to mingle with the community that much. So the first three years, I live in Queens, Jackson Heights. So he can go to school, and then after he graduated, no, not after. Then he went to Stuyvesant High School, and that time we moved to Soho. So 3-4 years later, and I should move Soho directly, because at that time Soho is very cheap. I remember when we buy an apartment in Queens, it's 60,000 maybe, 60,000. And Soho maybe 70, but now 7 million, maybe. But finally, I moved to Soho. I live on Broome Street. Just across the street is the very famous film star from. No. That's my studio. That's a studio on Hudson Street.
He has 2 prime real estate in Soho,
yeah.
And I visited one of them.
The Australian his ledger, yeah. One day, my wife saw a lot of police and the people come, and then you know his story, right?
I think this is the gentleman who.
His ledger. Okay.
Who was in Batman. Right.
Yeah. And I knew Yoko Ono used to live on Broome Street too. And then James Rosenquist has a studio in Broome Street, many years ago. And then I had a chance to, because my place, Broome Street, is getting smaller, and my son is growing up and have a wife, and so he said he want to move out. I said, no, I give this to you, and then I find a place to work as my studio on Crosby Street. And Crosby Street is also very nice street because Richard Serra used to have a drawing studio there, and JeanMichel Basquiat have a studio on Crosby Street too. So it's all.
So what's like to live in that community? So if you run out of salt, do you just walk down to the next apartment and ask? These are your neighbors. What's like to live like an artist? I think we're all very curious what that environment was like.
Yeah, that's. The air is more artistic too. And there's a example is in Soho. I mean, in the 80s, if you pick up a stone and throw it, the one you hit is artist. Whatever direction you throw it, it's all artist. So I love Soho in the 80s. I saw the first Julian Schnabel show at the Marylebone Gallery, which is only 4 paintings, so it's sold out. Only 4 paintings, because Marylebone ran a space just downstairs from the Leo Castelli. So it's a lot of foot track there. Very tiny space, but now Marylebone is a great art dealer. Everybody knows.
So we're now in the 80s, and this part of your journey, you were the first Chinese artist to receive a fellowship to be at the Clocktower. And you also talked about at this time you were painting in oil. You haven't adopted acrylic yet. And you also talked about you have started using acrylic. You also talked about in the film that you thought of your work as violent.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit, what were you doing what's like to have a residency at the Clocktower at that time, and what was your creative thinking?
I think I got into the program called National Studio Program, which is PS1. They have this program called National Studio Program for the American artists, and also International Studio Program for the foreign artists. But that program is like the film Tom Finkelpohl said, it's
Yes.
very competitive.
Who is now commissioner.
Yeah.
Tom Finkelpohl.
Tom used to be the director of Clocktower, and then he became Queen's Museum, director of Queen's Museum. Now he's commissioner of Department of Cultural Affairs. When I had this program selected to be in this program, they have two choices. You can either have a studio in PS1 in Long Island City, or you have a studio in Clocktower, that's Manhattan. Because I live in Manhattan, so I choose Clocktower. If I, like the first few years I live in Queens, then I would choose PS1. And everybody knows PS1 now is become Museum of Modern Art, part of Museum of Modern Art. So that program is very critical to me because at that time I really need a studio, and they just it's like a grant. You say fellowship?
A fellowship, a residency.
Well, whatever. But I got a very big, to me that time, like 800 square feet. So it's not 800, maybe it's a little bit smaller, but the biggest one in Clocktower.
How did you do that?
Oh, I don't know. They just gave it to me. And usually they only offer artists 1 year for this program. But I'm so lucky I got 2 years. And I still remember my friend, American painter called Vincent De Santis. He showed with Marlborough Gallery. He's quite famous now. And he's my next door studio. One day I invited him to my studio to look at my painting, because I'm talking about, you say the violence. At that time, my painting used a lot of Chinese cultural elements, and like a landscape and a lot of line and the leopard is eating the deer.
Leopard.
Yeah, just superimposed on the Chinese landscape. So I said, Vincent, do you think my work is too Chinese? He said, no, it's very New York. Because, to live in New York is like living in the cement jungle, You have to be very, it reminds me at the 80s, there's a very active gallery called XR in Soho. The director is Jeanette Ingberman. He visited she visited my studio, and after looking at my work, she liked very much. He or she in Chinese is same, so I always confused. Not confused, I messed up. And she said, to live or to be an artist in New York, especially for you, foreign artists, you have to be very, very, very good. She says 3 times very. Then I know, that means very, very hard. It's really hard, really. 60,000 artists here. But I'm kind of lucky, to have selected by the Clocktower
Foundation.
or PS1. So and during the studio program period, each year we have an open studio. And you know who came to my studio? Jasper Jones and Henry Gelzeler. You know Henry Gelzeler used to be a commissioner of Department of Cultural Affairs. And before that is Metropolitan Museum 20th Century's department director. I don't know. And he saw my work. He said, "I like your work very much," and give me a card. Say, "Call me." At that time, I really don't know much about him, you know. And one day I talked to the director, Tom.
Mm-hmm.
I said, "Tom, Henry said he likes my work." I said, "Wow." He said, I still remember, he said, "You hit the gold mine." Because everybody knows JeanMichel Basquiat, when he was trying to get into the New York art field, he first asked people, who is the most influential person in New York art field? Everybody say Henry Gelzeler. He is a good friend of David Hockney, and he brought his work to Metropolitan. Basquiat, he didn't use the internet, but he somehow he got the message which restaurant is Basquiat, the Henry Gelzeler's favorite. So if you see the movie Julian Schnabel made Basquiat, you will see, and he Basquiat present the painting to Henry. This is my work. I want you to see it. And I remember at the movie, Henry's first time, he said, "Too young." Because at that time he probably only 20 or 22 years old, very young. And he just grabbed the painting, mm-hmm. the small painting on the mm-hmm. car, say, "Too young for what?" And then and left. But after not too long, there's a big show called New York, a New Work mm-hmm. at the PS1. Mm-hmm. And Basquiat just like a star in the show. And then Henry saw the painting. He said, "Oh, I like it." And there's a Switzerland, the art dealer from Switzerland, mm-hmm. loved it very much, want to buy it. And Henry said, I know this artist." and then end up, many years later, they become a good friend, Basquiat mm-hmm. and Henry. Mm-hmm. And I saw an article, Henry's bedroom, the wall, the bedroom wall is Basquiat's work. It's pretty, Basquiat only lived 10 years. His art career only 10 years, mm-hmm. starting from 19 years old and 29 years old, mm-hmm. died. It's going too far, right?
No. Actually, I want to go back to what your friend Tom Finkelpearl said in the movie. He said something about your work, and I'm quoting close to verbatim. Yang Chihung's work wasn't about Asian identity, but his work opened up doors for Asian artists. for them to do what they want to do. Every contemporary Chinese artist I've interviewed, I've met, refer to you as the pioneer. Now, from a pioneer's perspective, I'm putting you on the spot. Contemporary Chinese art is hot. And I think today's audience, the interest, popular interest in contemporary Chinese art is tremendous. As an artist, as the artist that so many younger generation Chinese artists, contemporary Chinese artists refer to, and many of them regard you as their older brother because Chihung and his lovely wife Jane really took care some of the artists when they first came to New York City. What is your feeling about what's happening in the contemporary Chinese art market? And I realize I'm putting you on the spot. This is $1 million question. So after he answers, you should invest in contemporary Chinese art.
Well, I remember when Zhang Xiaogang, the Chinese artist, first have a show in Chelsea gallery called Max Portrait, not in business anymore. And after the show, he came to my studio and he asked me, say, Lao Yang. Lao Yang is a
Old Yang.
Yeah.
It's an affectionate way of referring to someone respectfully.
Yeah, that was early 2000. And he said, Lao Yang, you think painting is dead? It's really dead? I said, no, it's so much alive and kicking. And after a few years, his work in the auction London reached $5 million US. So he said, oh yes, really, because when he first came to New York to have a show, he looked at the gallery. He saw a lot of installation, video art. So he think, is painting still alive? I say yes, because 15,000 years ago already have painting. And in the 60s or in more, earlier than that, a lot of people said, a lot of artists said painting is dead. But they are all dead, but painting never dead. Right. So that I think to answer your question, it's two ways to answer your question. The first is my practice, my painting itself. It's like a sample for the Asian artists or Chinese artists, because when I got here, 79 and early 80s, it just the neo-expressionism or called new painting is very so much in the air. So, and I write the book and essay article and send back to Taiwan to they have the article in the magazine. So at that time, 80s, even China or Taiwan is very closed. Feng Bi. It's not very
closed.
Yeah.
Not close to one another, but closed to each other.
Yeah. And so they don't know much about what happened here. So I was open a window for them, and my work also, in a way, is very close to the neo-expressionist, or you call yeah, it's so different, so many different way to call it. In New York, we call neo-expressionist, or in German, and or back painting, or trans avant-garde in Italy, right? And in French, they call another or new informal painting. So that, I think, is the if you say the pioneer is, I see that in the very early stage, you know, not the trend, not the art trend, but it's what painting is about, and where it would lead to. So I write an article and essay. They all read it in Taiwan first, and then
and it was actually published in China, and it was
no.
Or did they get the books?
Yeah,
get it. So they were.
You know Zhang Huan, the artist Zhang Huan. He somehow get a book from other artists, and he copied it, and then he told me himself. He said he used the needle and the thread and
he stitched them together. He told me the same story when I interviewed him. He's also one of the artists in this series.
He said he still have the book. This thick, because
he refers to as his Bible. He refers to your book as really the Bible of for a whole generation of contemporary Chinese artists.
And Ai Weiwei, he's a very close friend of mine. He said all the Chinese artists look at this book because they don't know much about Western art supporting system, you know, or how they function. That's why Central Academy in Beijing, they invited me to have a lecture there. It was, wow, the full house, you know.
And what year was this?
I think it's in 92.
It's really
92. So even the platform is student sit here. I'm like Jesus.
We should have done that today and bring everyone from the library onto the floor.
Yeah, it's so crowded, so they all sit here, like I'm you know, preaching or something.
Well, on that note, as you are preaching, I know many in the audience have questions for you, and in the interest of time, I think we can take probably 3 or 4 questions. I think I saw a hand somewhere. I'm sorry, the light is right in my eyes, so would someone help me? That lady over there. Could you come to the microphone, please, so we can all hear your question?
Hi, my name is Peggy Tang. I was very interested in your comment about abstract art. And if I understood you correctly, that is sort of foreign to Chinese. Okay, because, of course, I'm Chinese. My feeling is that in a sense, abstract art is natural to Chinese because I recall a trip to Wangshan, Yellow Mountain, and it was so beautiful. When you see the clouds and the mist rising up, it is beyond realism. It really reaches towards the essence of beauty, which is abstract art. So even when I see the ancient Chinese paintings of the mountains, I see in it abstraction. So, and I also see from your paintings have that same kind of sense. So, okay, that's my comment. And I don't know if you agree
Well,
with me.
In terms of the abstraction, I think I said in the film, Chinese has a aesthetic of abstract, but in the painting, you look at the Chinese art history, you can never find a one painting really abstract. But again, it's the way of seeing, because like Zhao Wuji, the Chinese abstract artist, abstract painter,
That's
Dao Qi,
usually
yeah.
his nomenclature.
Well, I think we agree.
He said, you all said my painting is abstract painting. I think my painting is realism, because to me it's very real, you know, to the artist. So recently I also found I'm more and more to real, because I think to make reality become real is the artist's responsibility. So it's just the way how you look at it. Not only the how do you say that? Not only the label, you know, the abstraction or realism is just a label. It depends how you look at it, how you feel it. Yeah. So my granddaughter, she's only 4 or 5 years old. She can say painting has no meaning, but it's beautiful. Beautiful is its meaning, you know. Okay.
Thank you. Do we have a question over there,
Yes.
please?
Hi, thank you. Thank you both for sharing this story. My name is Andrea Louis, and I'm the executive director of the Asian American Arts Alliance, and we support individual artists and small arts groups here in New York City. And I think many of the challenges that young artists have in especially when they come from immigrant families, is their families want them to grow up to be doctors and lawyers. And so if you had something that you could share with those parents who are confronted with a child who grows up and wants to be an artist, what would you tell them?
Oh, yeah. When I decided to or committed my life to art, my parents cannot understand it. He said, "You were starving, you know. It's not a profession, you know." But today I see it. It's not a profession. It's my whole life, you know. So although people call professional artists, I think art to make art or creation is not a profession. It's a whole life's commitment. So my mother, because she is a Christian, so she kind of encouraged me to draw or paint. But my father is totally opposite. He said, "Oh, even selling potatoes is better than it's better than an artist." So, but I'm very lucky. I came to New York and tried to live and work here as an artist, and I did it. So I'm very pleased about it.
I think this will be our last question for the evening.
My name is Jim Pisani, and I'm a docent here. My question is more about New York City. You said you came here in 1976 and you knew immediately you wanted to live here. What is it about the city that attracts you, that attracted you and attracts 60,000 other artists?
What is
it about the city of New York that attracted you and attracts 60,000 other artists?
I don't know, because I read somewhere said why New York is the art capital of our world, because in Soho or Village, Saturday evening, you will see people sometimes line up to buy New York Times, because the New York Times have a great section of art. Which city have this kind of newspaper? And all the major or famous art periodical or magazine, the headquarters is in New York. And not only painting, film, fashion, or writer, or everything. When you go to the Venice Biennial, you see the work almost you already saw in New York. So that's why New York is the art capital.
Well, I think we all love New York, and we love the New York Historical Society.
Yes.
Thank you all for being here, and thank you to the Society for hosting us this evening.
Yes.
And thank you, Yang Chihung.